Good evening and welcome to week 3. It is the week we're talking about feelings. And last week we talked about awareness. The week before was the little get to know Erin. And it's all leading up to our first meeting of the Caregivers Carabiner. And I'm going to start tonight because I feel like there's been a pivot. And I was we're going to talk about feeling. I was feeling heavy. I was feeling heavy about my messaging, heavy. Let me explain. I'll tell you a story. So I used to be a property manager. I worked in real estate. I've been involved, I still do some for my own real estate. So let's see, almost 30 years now. I've been involved in property management in one way or another. And for quite a long period of time, it was my full-time job. And when you're a property manager, people call you when there's something wrong. They don't call to say, hey, they don't call to say good job. No one calls to say thank you. They call to complain. Something is broken, someone didn't do some things, like that's the only reason they call you. And so after doing that for decades, it wore me down. It felt very heavy. I was sad. I just didn't like it. And it was then there were a few little steps in the way while I was figuring it out, but I became a massage therapist because my heart wanted to help people. My heart wanted to do something happy. I wanted people happy to come see me, and I wanted them even happier when they left me. And so I just kept coming back to the notion of massage therapy. I looked at nursing school. I looked at everything. I looked at walking dogs. I looked at being a bookkeeper. I looked at all kinds of things. And sorry, the cat just let herself out. I usually lock her out of here, but I didn't. And she hates it when I talk. So I'm going to shut the door. Okay. Sorry about that. So when I became a massage therapist, my world got lighter. It got happier. People were happy to see me. I was helping people. I was helping them feel better. It was all of those uplifting things. They would come in with, a crick or just feeling meh. And when I watch them leave, they're like floating out the door. And that just lights up my spirit. And so I wanted to bring that same energy to the work that I'm doing for caregivers. And when I first started down this path and when I first started with the carabiner, I always knew very specifically I didn't want a support group. I didn't want a support group. What I was doing was not that. And in the same space, I wanted there to be tools, I wanted there to be resources, and I didn't know how else to describe it. Tools and resources, that's my my logical brain. Tools and resources, tools and resources. That's what people need. That's what people want. Tools and resources, to help them feel better, because I knew I'd lived this trauma, which I didn't see until I was through it and recovering. I knew I was burnt out, but I only saw it in hindsight. And so then I started talking about it in that way to caregivers, to say, hey, let's beat that burnout. Hey, let's soften this journey so the trauma isn't so sticky. And what I found is the more I was talking about it and the more I was putting myself out there and the more podcasts I've been on, the more articles I've written, the more and more and more I showed up talking about it in that way, the heavier I started to feel. And we came up to this week, and Monday, I wasn't completely prepared for this module, for this workshop, and it's my favorite one. The feelings one is my favorite. It's my favorite one. And I was feeling a lot of resistance, and I was feeling heavy, and I was feeling icky about it. And I said, okay, well, I'm not going to force content because that's gross, because you guys will feel like I forced content. And so I sat around, and then yesterday I sat around and I got very quiet, and I said, you know what? I don't, I just don't like the way this is going. I don't like how this feels. And what is it that I'm trying to really make? What is it I'm really trying to make? Because when I'm saying and what I'm feeling is not, it's like the opposing magnets, like, ooh, ah, it's not coming together. And what I realized in my heart is that what caregivers are feeling is overwhelmed. What they tell me they're feeling is that they are exhausted. They tell me that they don't feel as connected to their inner circle anymore because a lot of those people don't understand what they're going through. And so that circle gets smaller, which can feel really lonely. And they have shared with me that they don't have time for self-care because they are exhausted. They literally don't have the time. And if they do, there's feelings of guilt because their person is sick. And so it can feel really gross to be like, I'm going to go get a massage while your person like can't get out of bed. There's just, we can try to explain it 100 million ways, but it feels icky. Sometimes we can get there because we need it and we know we feel good on the other side. But a lot of times it's really hard to get ourselves out the door because we just have that guilt that's there. And what caregivers end up doing is they end up doom scrolling. They end up eating weird things. Some end up drinking. It just manifests in a lot of unhealthy ways. And we're not feeling the feelings. And we end up shoving them aside, hiding them in nice little nooks and crannies. And we end up dissociating because we can't feel the feelings. And we end up in the place of burnout. And so, really, the true thing that my heart wants to give you is the escape. I want to give you a healthy distraction. I want to give you a place that you can go without, because, oh my gosh, trolling the internet, it's like I will Google a thing and then it gives you the suggestions, and I just end up down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, what was I researching? What was I even looking for? And you get lost. And so I want to, it's all the, actually, that's the thing, the magic of all of it. I'm giving you the same tools and the same resources, but I am just looking at it and talking about it and sharing it with you in a different light. So it's still meditations, it's still EFT tapping, it's still movement, it's still art. I want to read with you. I want to do book club. I just shared on my live on Friday where is my sourdough starter? The crazy things I do to distract myself. I talked about my butterfly garden. I'm trying the sourdough bread, sorting pennies, but all of those things I've ever done been distractions. And I want to provide you with an escape and happy, healthy distractions. And it sounds goofy. It sounds goofy. But I think it is a truer message to how I show up and to who I am and the place my heart is in. And the other lessons get woven in, they get learned, but we're not focusing on the trauma and the burnout and how to fix it, because I'm so sorry, and I could completely be wrong, but my belief is that we can't avoid these things. We are living them, and we are living them every day as caregivers. And so there's a part of us that gets to lean into accepting it. There's a part of us that gets to become aware of it. That was awareness. That was last week. Those lessons still ring true. And we get to feel into it. And maybe we get to do it with a little bit of fun. And I want to deliver that in small, fun size bits that you can consume in a long sitting if you want. But if you have 5 minutes, phone, you can listen to a meditation. You can do a tapping script. You can take an art prompt and do something yourself. I really want to make you guys coloring pages. Like, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with it. And so that's the pivot. So I would really love to hear from you. So for you to tell me if that resonates with you at all, because you're my people. If you're here, you're my people. And so if focusing on that trauma and burnout feels better to you, tell me that. But if this lighter aspect of play and healthy distraction and escape like makes you breathe that sigh of relief, like, oh, and I'm not trying to fix you. I've never been trying to fix you. I've never wanted to tell people what to do. I just want to give you the space for love. That's it. So please let me know how you feel about that. Even pause this, send me an email. It's like, I dig it, or it's still not there. Because if it's not there for you, please tell me the thing, because I want so much to serve. Um, and so if I need a little nudge in the direction where you need the most support, please tell me. Please don't be shy. Please. Okay. So with that shift, this feelings module might feel a little bit different than if we'd been talking about it in a heavy trauma way. So let me see here. Where did we? So I wanted to share with you. I don't know if you guys got to download, but I do have the feelings wheel. I'm going to see if I can do a fancy share screen here. Where did it go? There it is. Share screen. Okay. Share. Okay, so here's our share screen. And I did this. I didn't create it. It was a download for me, and I just put it on an easy download PDF for you guys. And the reason I did this was because I really felt like it just was this epiphany that came to me that we have these heavy feelings and we don't really take the time to figure out what they are and what's behind them. And so we just give them blanket labels. And the ones that popped into my head were depression and anxiety. And I really felt like in my journey, I was experiencing caregiver burnout and I was labeled with having depression. And the signs and symptoms can look very much the same, and the burnout can lead to depression and lead to anxiety. And so I'm also not saying they were wrong, but it was this gap that was skipped over for me. And as part of me not being coached through identifying and naming my feelings, I also just began to dissociate, because it was like, well, whatever I'm feeling is gross and I don't want that to consume me. So I'm just going to shove it down. I did not have the awareness that if I felt it and leaned into the feeling, that it would actually pass. I actually believed if I felt it, it would consume me and be all that I was. When in reality, what makes it take over is when we ignore it and we push it away and push it away and shove it down and shove it down, because it's going to keep coming up. It's going to poke at you and poke at you until you pay attention to it. It won't stop. And if you don't stop to pay attention to it, it's going to show up in your shoulder, which was bugging me last week because shoulder pain is also where grief can live. And I've been working through some grief recently with the passing of my grandmother. So the shoulder was hurting me. It crept up into my jaw. I had, for the very first time in my life, I self-diagnosed it. The only thing I can imagine it was TMJ, but the muscles all through my jaw and up to my eye, just like this, were basically in spasm. So I could speak, but eating, I couldn't open my mouth wide enough to really get food in there. It was, I mean, I managed. Trust me, I managed. That jaw pain there emotionally represents anger and resentment. And I did some work on that, and that actually dissipated in about 4 days. I think it took for that, because now I'm good. Shoulders actually good right now. There was a little ping earlier, but it will show up in other ways. It will show up in your body if you don't feel the feelings. And the very first step in that is being able to name the feeling, to being able to identify and name it. And so I said, what better way? Because there's so many feelings. Like, we get into these core feelings of happy, sad, angry, surprised. And I mean, they've got bad, fearful, disgusted, and as the core feelings. And then there's rings outside of those and rings outside of those. When you get up here into anxious, you can see that branches off into overwhelmed and worried. Let's see, let's go down to under sad is where depressed is. We've got empty, inferior. But when we can start to identify these feelings, number one, when we get to name them, we feel less overwhelmed and less confused. So that right there is a big deal. I talked about dissociating. So when you can feel the feelings, you're actually in a more present state, which this all gets tied back into the awareness we were talking about last week. I'm going to unshare my screen because you can see what this is about. And I would just encourage you to download it just so you have it on your computer. And I'm actually going to put it in the carabiner as well. So as a member, it's one of the things that you can pop into and be like, okay, what's going on? I know I'm feeling icky, and read the words and see what lands with you, see where you feel it. Let's share and go here. Okay, awesome. So after we get to name them, we get to find ways to express them, which is where the pivot comes in the work that I'm doing, because we get to express them in different and unique ways. So yes, we get to use movement. We get to find where we're feeling it in our bodies, and we get to move through it. We get to do art, and maybe it's scribbling, and maybe it's crumbling paper, and maybe it's pounding clay, and maybe it's writing a poem, maybe it's journaling, but something artistic that lets us express ourselves. It connects that creativity with that safety component. So when we can allow ourselves to be creative, it triggers the same feelings as when we feel safe. And so there's this beautiful bridge there, which is one of the other reasons my heart wants to bring this creativity to caregivers, because it's not a grinded out situation. We're in this for the long haul. We're in it loving our people, taking care of our people, keeping them alive. And then there is a recovery period for us as well. It's just there. We can't be like, okay, they're better, let's go. I wish it was that easy. I wish it was that easy. Physical activity, I talked about the moving, and what I'm talking about for the carabiner is more of a somatic movement, and we're going to talk about that more next week. Next week is the movement component. And it's a little bit different than just going for a run or just going for a walk or exercise. There's a different mind-body connection component to it. We'll talk about it more next week, but they each have their own purpose. So they are separate. So we'll talk about that. Let's see, we talked about, well, I mean, we did, but we didn't. So the feelings, I just read a little meme today and it said like feelings are like visitors and they just come and then they go. And they will unless we suppress them. We already talked about that because I talked about my shoulder, I talked about the jaw and recognizing the feelings and moving through them. And when I was ignoring them, they talked to me. When I recognized them and said, okay, I'm working on it. Working on it. I was able to release some of what was happening. Let me see my other notes here. So another interesting component to feelings that we may have to learn or unlearn, which is also why I love the play aspect of this, is many times folks of my generation, to just put it very bluntly, we were taught to suppress our emotions. We were taught to suppress our emotions. Again, see, I spend too much time on the social media. This is why the carabiner is off social media. And it's this meme and it says something like, the new generation says to their children, stop crying and I'll buy you a toy. I came from the generation of, I'll give you something to cry about. And I actually replied to it, to the person who posted it, and said, and here I am learning how to cry. Here I am learning how to cry. Because many times we were punished for showing our emotions. It was a very typical thing for parents to say, you know, children are to be seen and not heard. I will give you something to cry about. Stop crying. All of the things, instead of addressing the feeling the child was feeling. And I've said this before, when I talk about these things, I am not saying that the parents are bad or did something wrong. It is what they knew. It is what they knew. And they did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had. And fortunately, things get to change. Things get to change. But many of us are learning how to feel and how to express our feelings and how to show our feelings and to let ourselves cry. A lot of people said to us, oh, when you start to cry, oh, don't cry. Please don't cry. Which really means that they're uncomfortable with you showing your emotions. Instead of saying, go ahead and cry, I'm here for you. To create space and understanding, they're so uncomfortable, they don't want you to cry. Don't cry. Don't be sad. Don't cry. Don't yell. Don't be mad. And so that then we're taught ultimately that these bad emotions, negative emotions, shouldn't be felt. And so we were conditioned to shove things away. And then somehow we ended up with chronic pain and ailments and all of these things that doctors can't, like fibromyalgia, that doctors can't diagnose and find, and all of these things that live in us. And nobody really understands why, but maybe it's because we became adept at shoving our feelings away. Just maybe something to think of. And as part of that process of learning to feel our feelings, I have found it is helpful for me to communicate them because, go figure, nobody is a mind reader. I mean, maybe some of us are. My psychic, they say everybody has the ability to be psychic. I do believe that if you listen to your intuition, I believe it's there if you're very, very quiet. But people can't still tell, they still can't tell how we're feeling unless we tell them. You know, I never used to tell my husband, I never used to tell Jerry how I was feeling. Can't he tell? Can't he tell how I'm feeling? I mean, maybe I would know he was mad about something if he was screaming or throwing something. Um, but it wasn't about me. 99.99% of the time, it had nothing to do with me. And so I've learned as part of this journey, a part of this healing, and I share this with you because I've been together with my husband 29 years now. And so it's only been within the last few years that I learned, oh, hey, you know what? I'm really upset today. I'm feeling really sad. And I don't have the color feelings wheel up, but try to pick a specific one and actually articulate to him, hey, by the way, I am not feeling well today. I'm sad and I might cry for no reason. And it has nothing to do with you. And so it's okay. And that made him feel so much better. It made me feel better to own my feelings. It made me feel like I could be more free with my feelings. I wasn't trying to suppress, I wasn't trying to hide, I wasn't trying to just put on a happy face for him. I was able to share that with him. And I was lucky that he gave me a safe space to do that. It did take a lot of practice. It was very interesting on the days I was feeling feisty, be like, just please don't. I don't want to fight you today. And he makes me so mad because he'll make me laugh. So I'll be all mad and ornery feeling, be like, I'm gonna fight you today. I'm gonna take you to the mattresses and be like, "Aw, you can't be mad at me. You love me too much." And it just makes me laugh. And so from being so mad to laughing and holding both of those feelings at the same time. And I don't know, the laughter always lightens everything, which is what I want to bring to this space. Just we have so much heaviness and the worry that we feel that's not going to go away. Uh, just wondering what is coming, labs, scans, just because you're living it. And so offering just a slice of an exhale, that's the magic I want to bring. That's the magic. So I'm going to recap a little bit because I know I bounced a little bit around. So first we get the opportunity to become aware and get ready to feel our feelings. So we get to name them. That's the first thing. We get to bring in our feelings wheel. We get to name our feeling. We get to feel the feeling. We get to locate it in our bodies and see where it's landing. And then next week, we're going to talk about the movement. We get to maybe explore how it feels new to us. So maybe we were suppressing feelings before, and this is something new. So we get to be really gentle with ourselves through this because we don't need to torture ourselves, guys. That's not what this is about. It's a practice. And we get to practice allowing the feelings to come and allowing the feelings to go. We get to practice expressing them externally more for ourselves through our art, exercise, the movement, journaling, tapping. I'm so excited about the tapping. It's going to be fun. And then communicating to our loved ones how we're feeling, which might even trickle into a way to ask for help if we're able to communicate how we're feeling. It's just, again, just an idea, just something to get curious about, something to think about. And hopefully you have a safe space for that. But that's something that the carabiner is as well. It's that safe space to bring your feelings, to just show up as you are, and in a space where with other people who understand what you're going through and what it feels like and the uncertainty. So those 5 things are what the feelings help us with and allow us to move through. And there's a lot of components that can be fun in bringing that. So we get to be a little lighter about feeling some of that icky feelings. We get to bring some fun to it. So I found this quote today too. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I'll post in the comments who wrote the quote. But the quote is, "The longer I live, the more deeply I learn that love, whether we call it friendship or family or romance, is the work of mirroring and magnifying each other's light." And that is just precisely what I want to bring to the space, because as caregivers, sometimes we feel like our light has been dimmed a little bit, and we get to shine our lights in this space and lift everybody up a little bit. So again, I hope this landed with you. I hope the little pivot lands with you. And I look forward to hearing from each of you and connecting with you and moving forward. Have an amazing night tonight. And I will see you next week for our 4th module, movement. And then after that, we start our meetings at the Carabiner, which is going to be fantastic. So again, have a wonderful night, and I will see you next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.